Smoke from Canadian wildfires has drifted south of the border and is causing delays. Flights into New York's main airports were temporarily halted due to limited visibility. More than 1,300 flights in the U.S. have been delayed from smoke generated by active fires raging in Ontario and Quebec. And with the summer travel season ahead, which should be an important one for airlines, we want to connect with one of them. The CEO of Flair Airlines, Stephen Jones, joins us now. Stephen, thanks so much for making time for us today.
My pleasure.
So I did want to just get your thoughts on the wildfire situation in this country that is drifting south as well when it comes to the smoke and the impact that it's having. What kind of impact are you feeling or watching for potentially?
Yeah, so fortunately at the moment there is no impact on our operations. While there is some slightly reduced visibility, the visibility is well above the minimum levels that we need to operate. So there's no impact on our operations at the moment. But obviously we're tracking it very closely and feel for all the people that are impacted by the air quality.
Yeah, when you hear about the possibility that this could be a particularly bad wildfire season in this country, does that have the potential to impact tourism in Canada or to Canada? Is that something that's on your radar?
Oh, I think, if we look back a couple of seasons, we've had some very bad wildfires here in Canada, and it has impacted, places, for example, like Kelowna or others, where it's been most significant. So yes, I would not underestimate the impact it could have. But actually, in terms of the total season and the season of travel, I don't think it'll be a significant impact. I think we're in for a really big summer of travel.
Okay, tell me more about that. What are you expecting, Stephen?
So we're expecting very strong loads. I think people are well and truly now back after COVID. Last summer was still a little bit, coming out of Omicron and some of the tail end of COVID. But we've been traveling with 90% load factors for April and May. So 90% of all of the seats on our flights in those 2 months have been sold. And as we look forward, and as an industry, we're lucky enough to be able to get good forward visibility through the sales. This is going to be a really big summer. So I'm expecting 90 to 95% load factors through the next 4 months.
It seems like last summer was such a long time ago now at this point, Stephen, but it wasn't a smooth summer when it comes to airline travel, trying to get back, into the groove following the pandemic shutdowns. Staffing was a big issue. How do you see yourself, set up for this year? Is it different, quite different from last year?
Yes, I think it is. It's going to be very different. I think by any measure, and using a great sort of Canadian term, I think last summer was an absolute gong show. But things are very different now. And if I use Flair as an example, then it's clear to us that we've really got our operation starting to hum nicely now. In the month of May, 82.1% of our flights arrived within 15 minutes of schedule. So, that's really an industry-leading statistic. So that's come from looking all the way through the system, whether it's the way we schedule flights, the online check-in, the training at the airport, the in-flight training, all of that has to come together. And I think the industry generally, but particularly Flair, is in a much better place this summer than we were last.
The Canadian Transportation Agency, it tracks complaints, and at the beginning of this year, up until March, Flair was leading the way in terms of complaints per 100 flights, so about roughly 20 complaints per 100 flights. What do you think was driving that, and have you addressed that as we head into the summer?
Yeah, so I think the CTA statistics are interesting, but can be a little bit misleading. If we look at the actual numbers of complaints, so Flair had 239. I think Sunwing had 880. WestJet and Air Canada had more than 3,200. And when you think that each aircraft has 189 seats, one bad flight can lead to a lot of complaints and skew those numbers. But if we put last year's statistics to one side and just think about where we're going now, the best way to stop complaints is to run a really efficient airline, get your operation running smoothly. And so that's where we've been focusing. As I said, 82.1% on-time performance in the month of May. But we've also been focusing through the channels into how we deal with complaints. We've established a specialist CTA response team based in Montreal. And so they've enabled us to reduce the number of days of delay or days of processing a CTA complaint from 90 down to approximately 10 days now. So I think this is a very different environment than those historical statistics report on.
We've also heard a lot about the pilot shortage in this country. And I was just wondering if maybe you could give us a bit of insight into what you're seeing on that front.
Yeah, sure. I mean, across the industry in the wake of COVID, the demand for pilots has really surged because a lot of pilots took early retirement or left the industry and didn't come back in when the industry resumed. So the demand for pilots has been really high, and as a consequence, the value of pilots has gone up significantly, and the industry needs to realise that and recognise it. That's come through. We've completed a contract with our pilots in December of last year, so we're in contract at the moment. WestJet has just completed theirs, and Air Canada has theirs coming. And
did you feel the pressure at that point, Stephen, in terms of needing to raise those wages to keep pilots flying with you or to attract them?
Oh, sure. It's a negotiation, and the demand for pilots comes and goes, but it's very strong at the moment, and I think the contract settlements reflect that.